Good day, everybody. Thank you for tuning into Common Sense Warriors. My name's Lyle.
And my name's Reiner.
But Reiner's going to be flipping switches and conducting things today because we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. And so if Reiner pipes in, or if we have to run away, then that's because things are
It'll
blowing
be
up.
a privilege.
It's a privilege, yes. If Reiner actually graces us with his presence today, that'll be good. Our guest today is Flavia Zancope. Zancope?
That's right.
That's
yes.
right, and she is a notary from Zancope Notary Republic
Correct.
in Langley.
That's right.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me here.
Oh, our pleasure, our pleasure. So we were kind of chatting quite a bit before the cameras because we had some technical issues and that type of thing. But Flavia, you come from Brazil.
Yes,
So-
I was born and raised in Brazil.
Cool.
And I lived there for most of my life. I moved away for university. And I spent 5 years in the States living there. And then I moved back to Brazil for another 5 years, where I got my MBA done. And then I moved here to Canada. I've been here for almost 10 years now.
And where did you go to school in the States?
UCF, University of Central Florida.
Oh, cool. They have a good football program.
Yeah.
I know you're not a sports fan, so it's going to be okay, but yes, the UCF has a good. So how was going to school in Florida? That must have been interesting.
It was very similar climate-wise for me.
Okay.
Back then, that was 1998. I remember applying to different universities, and I had to do that in the middle of the night because of internet.
Yeah.
It was faster and in the middle of the night. So I applied to different universities in the States online.
Yeah.
And then I waited for the acceptance letter, and the first one I got was UCF that I got on the mail
Okay.
in Brazil, and that's how I decided to go there.
Cool. And where did you go to school in Brazil then? Your undergrad is in law, you said, right? So.
Yes, I didn't finish my undergrad in law.
Okay.
I started my undergrad there. In law over there is an undergrad degree. So
Okay.
I started, and it's a 5-year program. I did 4 years.
Yeah.
And then that's when I decided to move away. So I moved to the States. I got accepted into UCF.
Yeah.
And I transferred all of the education that I had from Brazil to UCF. So it all came as electives.
And did you live the campus life and everything in Florida, or?
No, not really,
No?
because my move of moving away from Brazil was actually against my parents' wishes.
Oh.
So I had to be working full time and studying full time
While
to
you
support
were there.
myself while I was there.
Where were you working when you were in Florida?
I worked in the tourism industry, so I took advantage of speaking Portuguese.
Okay.
And I was able to work for Walt Disney World. They did marketing research. Well, that was one thing. At the beginning, at the very beginning when I got there, when I was starting university, I worked for timeshare companies selling, grabbing people at the mall or tourist attractions to kind of
You were one of those people that hey, I've got a time check
I
for
was,
you.
I was.
Oh.
I've met people like you.
And it was great because it had flexible hours, so I could work and at the same time not affect my schooling.
Mhm.
And the pay was great. I remember as if it was today, every couple that I sent that qualified, I received $50. So I was every people that I watched walking by me at the mall, I thought, oh, $50 running away.
Yeah, that's kind of a good way to look at it. So
I
how did you
know.
qualify them? Just that you got $50
They would take.
They just had to be
to
signed
qualify,
up.
yeah, they had to they had a questionnaire that I had to quickly ask people based on their income, where did they come from, and if they were likely to purchase a timeshare in Florida or not.
Okay.
That's basically what they were looking for in that questionnaire. So
And
if
then-
they answered the right questions, then I would just give them an invitation paper, and they would go for breakfast in one of the resorts, and then they would get free tickets or discounted tickets for Disney, and then I'll get my $50.
And so was it through Walt Disney that you did the timeshare? Or was it
It was
an
no,
outside
it
company?
was through Westgate. I think Westgate Resorts.
Oh,
That's
okay.
the name of the timeshare that I worked for.
Okay.
And then, but it was associated. They were giving away tickets for Disney, and it was in the kind of tourist area
Yeah.
around Disney that
Yeah.
I worked. Different locations every day, things like that. But that was at the beginning, and then during university, they were doing a selection for people to work to do an internship at Disney World. So
Okay.
then I got into that, and then it was much better
Yeah.
because then I was working in an office with, it's called Varga Research. It's a research company that does all the marketing research for Walt Disney World.
Okay.
So I was doing like, I was inside the theme parks doing interview with people that came in and out of the park and things like that. And because I spoke Portuguese, I was like able to speak with more clients or more guests, as they call.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between the Portuguese in Brazil and Portugal, or is there like because the French in Quebec is way
Yes.
different than the French in France? Like, is there some sort of difference, or is it kind of
Yes,
similar?
well, it's similar if you read the papers.
Yeah.
But many of the words that they use, it's like more of an antique word for us in Brazil. In Brazil, is like more of a modern Portuguese version.
Oh, okay.
But we can easily understand each other. It's
Yeah.
not a big deal.
That's kind of, and so you went to the UCF and your parents did not want you to go. That must have been fun.
They didn't want me to go to the States. They didn't want me to leave Brazil.
They didn't want you to.
So I was 19 at that time.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm at majority age, and they gave me a car when I turned 19. So I sold the car, and that's the money that I used to pay for my flight. And
How
first
long did that
year
take
of
for them to get
university.
over?
Are your parents talking to you again?
Yes, they are. Well, they kind of like knew me and my personality, so
Yeah.
they trusted me, but they didn't want me to go away because I had a very comfortable life in Brazil, and they're like, you don't need to do all of that. You're gonna have to work, and you're gonna go through all of that. But it was just something in me that wanted to I don't know, explore more and live a different life. And
Good for you.
yeah, but then soon I realized that yes, I didn't even know how to wash my clothes because I had a maid in Brazil. I had a cooker, I had a driver, I had everything. And then all of a sudden I was by myself and I was looking at the washing machine and I was like, it's not that hard. There must be instructions somewhere how to wash my own clothes. And yeah,
Wow.
and of course that there were times that I didn't know how to manage my own money, and then I would spend all of that like going out with friends because now you're living by yourself.
Yeah.
And then next bill comes and then I got my light cut off because I didn't pay my bill. And then I didn't have money for groceries, so I ate a lot of times like those like canned sausages and things like that because that's all I could afford for mismanaging my financials.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you were how old? 19?
19, 20, 21, yeah.
Wow.
Those 3 years were quite hard.
Hey, well, and that's part of the reason why we want to talk about this stuff, because people, when they get through adversity such as that and dealing with and figuring out life, like obviously you had a fairly good life in Brazil and your parents didn't want you to go, and your parents obviously worked hard to get to where they were, and they
True.
wanted you to
That was
benefit
their
from that.
point.
And then it's like we worked so hard for you to have all of these things, and then it's like, okay, mom, see you later. I'm going to UCF and I'm gonna go eat sausages out of a can.
I know.
And your parents are probably like, what is going on? So did they ever come visit, or were they?
They did.
Okay.
After 1 year that I was there, they're like, okay, time is up. Like, you had your time. Let's just go back home and finish your life. Like, you got enough experience now to know that you don't want to be doing that. But I don't know. That there was always something wrong with me, I think.
Stubborn.
And
Didn't
yeah.
we determine that
Stubbornness.
self-employed people have a screw
The
loose?
on thing.
Yeah.
So we've got that's why it's a really good show, because every single person we've had on is like absolutely stubborn. They've got this drive and determination. They can't just sit in the box. They have to get outside the box.
Well, and I even remember, in order to save, because I had no idea of like how much life costed, right?
Yeah.
I was like this privileged kid being raised in a good family, and then all of a sudden I had a car in my name, and I realized, wow, that means money. I have actual money in my name, so I'm gonna sell and go away. And then I knew that maybe I needed more money than what my car would be worth. So what I did, I started to sell jewelry at my university. So I would I found manufacturers in Brazil, and I go there, buy a bunch of those jewelry. Do you know like those jewelry sets that you can buy so I rented those things and I filled with jewelry, and then I would buy there and then sell at the university where I went, because people would be willing to pay more for those things and things like that.
Yeah.
And my parents are like, are you selling jewelry in your law school? Why are you doing that?
Better than selling drugs?
I know.
I guess that's what it shows, entrepreneurship right away.
Right.
Exactly.
You're
I was
buying
like, I need
loans.
to make
Yeah.
money somehow.
Yeah.
How can I do that while I'm still here? And that's the way that I found, because I was always into jewelry.
Yeah.
So
So you
that was
brought
also
the jewelry through like in your suitcase when you flew back?
I did. Well, I did bring jewelry to U.S. because I thought, well, maybe people are gonna like Brazilian jewelry, and
Mhm.
sure enough, they did.
Yeah.
So I was able to sell off everything that I had, like within 6 months.
Well, that's good.
It's just too bad that I didn't have expertise in terms of managing my own money back
Yeah.
then. I spent all partying and all of that, but it was a great experience. And then a year later, my parents were like, "Well, now you had your fun. Now it's time to go back home." And I
Yeah.
was like, "No way! I'm staying here. I don't know what's gonna lead me to, but
Yeah.
I'm staying here." Because they were expecting me in 5 years to become a lawyer. So I studied 4 when it was my last year of law school, ready to go. And my father had kind of like arranged like friends to meet me for different offices and things like that. And I was like, "Yeah, not really." And then I moved to the States, and then I was starting university again, and because law was like a master's program, so I
Yeah.
decided to go with the business degree. And my parents were like, "What are you doing? What are you gonna be?" And I was like, "I don't know. I have no idea. But I
Yeah.
wanna explore more, and then I'll find out."
And you had to
So,
pay your own tuition and everything?
tuition, books. I remember using all my books were always used books.
Yeah.
And sometimes even used books were too expensive.
Oh,
so
the
I'll
used
just
books
study.
are ridiculous. I remember
Yeah.
from when I was in school, because I would always buy a used book as well, because they'd highlight the proper parts.
That's true. But
You
many
save
times,
some money on highlighter costs too,
yeah,
right?
they were expensive too. So I would just go to the library,
Yeah.
borrow and study there. So I
Okay.
would spend many hours and nights at the library studying because I didn't buy the books.
Yeah,
So, but
And-
yeah, so I got through university like that.
yeah,
And then when I finished, I was like, well, now what? I didn't have like a visa to stay in
Right.
the States. And by that time, I was feeling kind of like lonely as well. So I stayed for another year working there for the work experience. But then I decided to go back to Brazil and just kind of like see where life would take me.
and so
But
what, you moved back to Brazil and what happened?
I moved back to Brazil. Well, before I moved, I had bought an apartment and I was sending money to Brazil
Okay.
for the property that I decided to buy there because I didn't want to move in with my parents anymore.
Okay,
And so I bought an apartment, then I moved back to Brazil, and I was doing kind of regular jobs in Brazil. I was a marketing manager, and then I was working different jobs like that. Not related to law anymore because I had a different kind of focus, and I thought that it suited my personality really well,
Yeah.
like the business aspect. And I decided to go for an MBA
Mhm.
and get more into management. So I started an MBA in Brazil.
Yeah.
And then kind of like at the same time, so as soon as I finished, I applied for a job and I got a management consulting position with one of the main consulting companies in Brazil. And then as I was working there doing consulting, basically designing process and procedures for different companies. At the same time, I decided to open a business with a friend of mine. She's a designer.
Okay.
And then she designs clothing. So we decided to open a company that would sell, and that was through my experience. I found hard being a young professional woman,
yeah,
finding clothing that would suit the needs that I had for being professional, but at the same time not looking old. So based on that, I decided to start this company for women's clothing, professional clothing for women. So my friend designed the clothing, and then she outsourced manufacturing and took care of all of those aspects, and I took care of the business aspects, finance, sales, and all of that.
that must have been a decent market there for that,
Yes.
because, well, I don't know a ton about Brazil. I do know a little bit about Brazil, but I do know that they're still up and coming as far as an economy is concerned, and we call it an emerging market in my business. Like it's an emerging market. So there's a ton of potential. Like you said, I think you said there's 230 million people that live there.
That's right. So that's
and
the
they're up and coming people coming out of the lower class and into middle class and that type of thing. So it's obviously was a growth market for you. So that sounds like a good business.
It is.
So-
It is for sure. It's a lot of work
Yeah.
because that was my kind of first time working with retail and manufacturing and all of that. And you realize that you're always kind of like ahead of the actual season, and it doesn't make a lot of sense for me. And then I was tired of clothing. But anyway, it was good business.
Yeah.
We were selling to stores that sold different brands, and through throughout Brazil, like because Brazil is huge.
Yeah.
I'm from Rio de Janeiro. I was born in São Paulo, but I was raised in grew up in Rio de Janeiro.
Okay.
So all of that happened in Rio de Janeiro, and then we were selling to different states, like and a company from Rio de Janeiro, because Rio is kind of like the place where everybody in Brazil wants to be, because it's beautiful, it has nice beaches and good vibes and all of that. So
Yeah.
a brand from there would easily be able to sell throughout the rest of the country. So that's what we were doing at that time.
Very cool. And so you were born in Sao Paulo.
I was.
Okay, so that's quite a ways away from Rio de Janeiro, isn't
No,
it?
no,
Oh,
it's
okay.
yeah, both in the southeast area, like
Oh, okay.
side by side, like it's a 6-hour drive. It's
So
not-
how the heck did you end up in Canada?
Well, the main thing for me during this entire time in Brazil is I think we go through a criminal, like a civil war. A lot of criminality and a lot of criminal stuff happening all the time, but nobody advertises that, I think, for financial reasons.
Yeah.
But it's like people just get used. It's like the pan is getting warmer and warmer all the time, and people are just like not realizing that the water is boiling, but
Yeah.
people are used to it, living at such a high level of stress all the time. And for me, that was the key thing. I was like, yes, by that time I got married, I had a great life, and we were talking about starting a family, and I'm like, how are we gonna start a family in this situation? Like, we are not safe anywhere. Like, I have been robbed 3 times with gun in my hands. I have seen dead people bleeding out next to me. And my father has been kidnapped. My husband has been, well, everybody around me has had.
It's
some
a different
experience
way
to
of thinking,
that.
isn't it? Because my wife's from Jamaica, and so and she still has family in Jamaica, and we hear about from family members that and about people getting kidnapped and the gunman coming to get you and that type of stuff. And I know that in Rio, it's quite, it's almost like a war zone sometimes. Like,
It is.
especially up in the what do they call? There's not the shanties, but
Favelas.
yeah, that's what
The
it's called.
ghettos, yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty severe in there. Like
It is,
that's
but not
lawless.
only there, and that's like over the past year, like 10 years, 15 years maybe, that's when we started not only being in the favelas, because the small areas of favela, then you can avoid it somehow,
Yeah.
or some people can. And then, but people started to come closer and closer to the point of where like regular people were, like for example my parents, they live in a gated community with security armed 24/7, cameras everywhere. So they have
Wow.
grocery shopping inside this gated area, they have daycare, they have playground, they have restaurant, they have, so they're,
As long as you stay
a
inside the
prisoner, pretty
gates,
much.
yeah. As long as you stay inside the gates, it's a great life.
it is.
But
it
if you
is.
leave, now you're
Then you're in
subjected.
danger. And then, yeah, like my mom is here now and she's like, oh, I want to get a new phone, but I don't want to get one of those bigger ones because it's harder to hide. And when
yeah.
you get out of those gates, you don't really answer the phone in public because in a second it would be like taken away for someone.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Huh. Yeah,
So-
we don't realize how spoiled we are in
Yeah.
Canada, right? Like everybody complains about everything, but the reality is that in the grand scheme of things, we are very, very blessed. And
For sure.
talking to people from other countries and emerging markets and that type of thing. And I mean, we don't, and we were talking about this before, in Canada, we don't get a lot of international news. Like nobody really knows what's going on outside of Canada. We're turning into USA Light, I think, because everybody's so self-absorbed and we're not getting the international flavor in our news. Like there was an election in Brazil in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and it was a massive turnover of political ideologies and that type of thing.
That's right.
And now there's even more. There's it's like you said, it's almost like a civil war going on now
Yeah.
because the socialists are
They're
they
complaining.
got booted out and they're ticked off. But the socialists and they have massive levels of corruption, and we saw that with Rio with the Olympics and stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's just it's everywhere, and I think people are just naive in the fact that they think that people are actually not corruptible, and it's like no, if you go
Oh, no. Yeah.
even in Canada there's corruption, and you see it with what's going on right now on different levels where there's corruption in different things, but in Brazil it's billions and billions of dollars
Yeah,
of
and
corruption.
it's like, I think the whole problem there is like education. So people are just kind of like oblivious to corruption. Some levels of corruption are even socially accepted.
yeah
people do say that they vote for a specific person, they know that the person would be corrupt and would steal money, but at least they do something.
Yeah.
They have a slogan like that. Like some candidates have a
Well, at least we know,
slogan like that.
yeah, you know the corruption's
So
gonna be
you
on
know.
your benefit, and then you vote for,
Exactly.
yeah, and that's terrible.
It is.
And I mean, I don't think we're much,
Well, I was just gonna say it.
we're not
it's-
much better.
Yeah, in North America, it may not look as obvious, but it happens a lot as well in our
Yeah.
governments. We're finding that in BC now. We're seeing some interesting things, you know, and it affects the economy in a drastic way.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm sure Brazil is just at a whole new level or a whole different level than us, but I mean, we're definitely not immune to that.
Well, but I think that the main problem with Brazil is that it's not only politics. You find corruption everywhere,
Right.
from your everyday life in traffic. Then you see all the lines, and then you see a line that is turning right. Someone thinks that their time is worth more than everybody else that is waiting, and it's not one person. It's like half of the people that are waiting there, like all of a sudden they decide to cut it off and go to the
Oh, that's
line.
it. Yeah, everybody's more important than everybody else, right?
Exactly.
So I'm more important than you, and my time's more valuable than everybody
That's
else,
the
so I'm gonna
whole
cut up the
culture
HOV
thing.
lane.
Yes.
And then how many times, like I sat in traffic at the HOV lane there, and for an hour and a half trying to get off 200th, and there's people coming into the HOV lane that were just one car, and they just ruin it for everybody else, because all they're doing is making more backlog for everybody else.
Yeah.
And that's, well, they got to the front of the line. Well, you know, that's not right. That's not fair.
Yeah.
You know, that's, so you came to Canada.
So I came to Canada because of all of that happening, and I decided I'm a very list person. I like to do pros and cons and everything, and I did a lot of research, and I had a big spreadsheet of like places where I would like to live, and I considered different aspects about different places. So I was considering Vancouver specifically, not Canada
Okay.
in general, and also Sydney in Australia.
Oh,
So I came here to visit. Vancouver was ranking higher for me in all of my like lists and stuff, and also because it was closer to fly back home to Brazil.
mm-hmm.
But Sydney had a better climate for me.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of like being out in the sun and doing outdoor stuff.
Vancouver's not the place to be.
I know. And then, but I
Our
was like,
sunshine's a
well,
little better.
and
Yeah.
then I'll be compromising the time, like the amount of times that I'll be probably flying home or allowing my family to visit me as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I came here for a visit. It was December, just to get the worst out of the winter and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
while I was here, it was a beautiful week.
Oh,
It was nice and sunny.
happened to
that happened
To
before.
Leanna, that happened to Leanna as well. She was here on the island for the 1 week where we had no rain in the winter.
And
And
we
she
had
thought,
one day of rain out of the week, but the rest of it was just beautiful, sunny. It was cold for sure. For me, it was like super cold. It was
Yeah.
probably like, I don't know, like 5
oh,
or
that's-
6, something like that. But coming from Rio de Janeiro, it was super cold. I had all of my jackets on and things like that. But it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
But I knew, like I had read about the amount of rain, cloudy days. I had all of that information, and I was like, I think I'd rather deal with that, with what's happening back home in terms of criminality.
Yeah.
And that's how I decided to apply. So I applied back home, and I waited for 2 years for the permanent residence to be allowed
Yeah.
in order for me to make the move. Because we were both professionals, myself and my husband. Professionals back in Brazil. We were really doing well financially speaking. We were like, we don't want to just move to kind of like check what is out there. I don't think I'm at that stage anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But if we do have the permanent residency card, then we will be willing to make the move. So we waited for 2 years, and then when we got it, we came here. He used to work with logistics, imports, and exports, so it was for multinational companies in Brazil. It was a fairly easy transition. Still, when you come from a third world country to Canada, people may see that you have worked at these companies that they know, or that you have this or that degree. He also has an MBA.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like, yeah, but it's not from North America. So I'm sorry, but you're not gonna get a management position or anything close to that like you had. So you need to kind of like give many steps back
Right.
before you can move forward again. And with that being said, I started to work in the business area, but then a few years later I decided that I wanted to go back to my passion, that was law.
Okay.
And it was actually after I had my first son. So when he was born, it was like, I never planned to be a stay-at-home mom. I have 1 year now because the maternity leave. And that gave me enough time to think about like what did I want to do professionally speaking that would bring me joy and would be fulfilling. So that's when I decided to go back to law. And then I looked into the program of becoming a lawyer here or versus becoming a notary public. Both are 2-year law schools that you need to go for a master's program.
Right.
And based on what I wanted out of the working life, I never had intention of fighting courts or anything like that. So
my friends and my background's I have a law or not law but criminology degree, and so my background is a lot of law. The one thing I do know about lawyers is that they work extremely hard and their family life balance is not.
Yeah.
There's no balance. It's
That's
either
true.
work or work.
Yeah.
There's no family life with lawyer clients and that type of thing. It's really difficult. So the notary program is the way you decided to go. And you were saying that there's like 1,200 applicants to the program at Simon Fraser, and they
That's
accept 30.
Yes, the classes are made of 30 people.
Yeah.
The application goes through the society because it's a program with SFU, but it's specifically designed for the Notary Society.
Okay.
So you need to apply to the Notary Society because they need to check your background, they need to have reference letters, but you need to present 5 reference letters from different levels of the society and things like that in order to be considered for the position, and then you do 2 in-person interviews. And then, so they receive an average of 1,200 applicants, and they select 30 people for the program.
Okay.
So we had 30 people in my class starting the program, but only 11 graduated. Because throughout SFU, again, it's not like a regular master's degree. You have to fulfill Notary Society's requirement, which doesn't allow you to fail a class or to have, you need to have 80% average for all the classes you take all the time.
So the people that are listening that don't know the real difference between a lawyer and a notary, obviously similar training, similar obligations as far as upholding the law, but could you explain as to the differences between a lawyer and a notary?
Sure. So the notaries, we study for those 2 years, same amount of time that the lawyers study, but we only focus on 3 areas of the law. So we only work with contracts law, real estate law, and estate planning law.
Okay.
So those are the 3 areas that we work, and we only work when both parties are in agreement. So where there's nobody's fighting, then we can represent one side or the other.
Okay.
And on those 3 areas of the law, when we are doing consensual work, we are able to do pretty much the same work that a lawyer would be able to do for those 3 areas. So we represent clients when they are buying or selling a property or when they are doing a refinance. In that sense, there is no difference looking for a notary or a lawyer that would do the conveyancing. That's how we call this type of paperwork. And for wills and estate planning documents, we do wills and representation agreements. We do power of attorneys as well. And for contracts, we do contracts of, we can help clients draft contracts between business or purchasing or selling small business and bill of sale for all the business assets and things like that as well.
Okay. So there's not the adversarial aspect of the legal system, so in the lawyers deal with the adversarial part.
That's
and that's
right.
why they get kind of the rap that they do is because they are dealing with confrontation and adversarial situations and also criminal law too, right? So you're not
Exactly.
you don't touch any criminal cases or that
No,
type of
criminal or family law, no,
Yeah.
we don't do with
family
any of
law.
that.
But you do, so you notarize estate planning, that type
We
of
do
thing.
estate planning, contracts law, we do the real estate law,
Yeah.
and then the whole notarization of documents like certified true copies, travel letters, those kind of things.
So if you're traveling and you need a notarized letter, and you pop into your local notary office and they'll notarize the letter, that's your ID and
That's right.
everything. Okay, fantastic. What is, as far as estate planning is concerned, what has been your largest observation, challenge, that type of thing in regards to estate planning for Canadians?
Find people don't realize how important it is and how much money and time can save to your loved ones after someone is gone.
Right.
I find people usually think, oh, I'm not planning on dying anytime soon. I'm not gonna need a will. Whenever I feel that I need it, I'll come and get one. But in reality, and I have experienced kind of like recently, people that were close to me or parents of friends of mine that passed away suddenly, and because they did not have a will or did not have a proper will in place, the will was not valid, and then the family behind that they leave behind needs to follow up. Like at that point, they would need to hire a lawyer, apply to court to be designated the administrator of the estate to be able to deal with everything. That takes easily a year or so, and a lot of money to be able to hire a lawyer, apply to court. At the end, you're looking at about $20,000 legal fees.
Just in legal fees, not including probate fees and.
Not even starting probate fees,
Yeah.
just to
Just to
have
get
the right to do the probate.
Yeah.
And
So that's one of the questions that my clients ask is like, okay, well, what if I die without a will?
exactly.
You die intestate, right? Well, there are rules that are laid out, but still, you need to have the legal representation in court, and notaries don't do that.
Exactly. No, we don't.
Okay.
And that's the main point. So people they don't need to be concerned about their assets going to the government. A lot of people think that, oh, if I don't have a will, my assets will all go to the government or something like that. No, that's not the case.
Right.
We had WESA implemented in 2014, which is the new legislation for wills and personal planning documents.
Mm-hmm.
And your wills, your assets will be going to your descendants, and there's a list of order in terms of priority of descendants of who gets what. So that's not the concern. The concern is how to actually start to execute that, because wills and estate planning documents can be all held in a private matter. If there's a will, if there's a valid will in place, everything can be held with like outside from the courts. You don't need the courts to do anything. The executor appointed in the will be able to go in person or send a courier to file for probate in the probate court, and that's just a stamp and some paperwork, and then you receive everything back, and then you are able to deal with everything on the private level, which is a lot faster, less expensive. But if you don't have that, in order just to have the power to be allowed to do that, that's when you need to spend extra money.
And the one thing that I think we may want to touch on is that there is a lot of misinformation about wills. Like,
Yes.
there's the case of the farmer who had a car crash on top of them, and he wrote a will on the side of his barn or something. There's
It's on the
cases,
fender of his tractor.
yeah, that's right. So he's under his tractor, and
I remember
we
it.
hear, yeah. Well, I probably told that story anyway. So there's stories of that, and then there's like, what if I handwrite my will? Can you speak to some of the myths that are out there about having a will and some of the.
Sure. So the validity of a will has nothing to do if the will has been done by a lawyer or a notary. The only reason that we recommend clients to do it with a professional is for the same reason that you go to a hairdresser to have a haircut, is because they know what they're doing.
Kind of the
Not that
wrong
you-
guys on that one.
Sorry.
I know.
A hairdresser. What
I
is
have
that?
my hair is
Razor.
thick.
I know. So we are trained professionals to do that and to know exactly what to include in a will to better address the needs of the person who is we are drafting the will for. And then of course that we also follow the legislation in terms of the legalities of having a valid will.
Right.
A lot of people ask, oh, I have drafted my own will. Can I go there to notarize? They don't need to notarize the will.
Mm-hmm.
They can draft, it doesn't matter if they typed in or if they handwrite it. They can handwrite their own will.
Yeah.
And then as long as they follow what the legislation says, WESA, in terms of what must have in a will for the will to be valid, then the will be valid.
Yeah.
It may be drafted the best way or not, but then there's the main problem with the will, and a lot of people say, well, I can pay $15 for one of the wills kit, do it yourself
Right.
online. Why would I pay $399 to get my wills done with you? And that's the cost for one person's will, by the way. And my explanation is like, well, that's for the same reason that you pay to have work done professionally, even when you can do it yourself.
Right.
Many aspects. Because we know exactly what you have in your document to make sure that you not only do a document, but you have certainty, or you have peace of mind that you're leaving a document that is going to save your family time and money in the future.
Yeah.
Because if you do it like a do-it-yourself, or you do it like out of the internet, or you copy a friend that has done it with a lawyer, I have heard that as well. I copied everything exactly like my friends, and I just changed the names, and I think it's applicable to me. I just need to have it notarized. You don't need it to be notarized, but you can only test the validity of a will after it's too late, after the testator has passed away.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, you're taking your chances if you're doing it yourself, or if you're buying one of those do-it-yourself kits.
I think there's a lot of misinformation about wills. Like, people think that they need to have everything in their will, and you need to have a, you know, that's one of the worst. And the whole part of probate and like everybody's worried about probate and they think it's a tax. It's not actually a tax. It's like just the actual cost for you to verify that it is your last will and testament, or there's no other wills that are out there. And then we have a common law system in Canada that it's all public. So I think people need to also know that their wills are public. So if you
After
have
the testator dies,
yes, after you die, your will is now public
yes.
record.
Yes, it is public.
So even
record.
if you handwrite it down and you say, I've got this, that, and the next thing, you think it's private because you've not even had a notary or a lawyer do the will for you.
Yeah,
Well, guess what? It's public. So anybody can go and take a look at that
that's true.
after you pass away.
That's true.
So I think it's a good point that if you don't have a will, get one. Get a professional to do it, because like it's just like trying to fix your car. Do you try and fix your car yourself?
Exactly.
If you
Yeah.
know what you're doing, great. If you're a professional, Brian, shut up.
No mechanics like cars.
Yes, exactly. But you're one of the few people, and you only work on certain vehicles, like the ones
I like
with
my old
computers
cars.
and
I like my old
the
cars.
old cars, which are easier to work on, right? But
Yeah.
and that's what people need to realize. Find the professionals to do the jobs that professionals do.
Exactly.
Don't leave it up to chance. Don't leave it up to yourself to do it. It costs $399.
That's right.
That's probably money well spent.
And the key thing is that with the change in legislation, the way that we are currently drafting the wills, if done properly,
Yeah.
we do not list the assets that you have. We don't say, I want to leave this red car that I have to this person or that person. We are
Yeah.
just going to list, prepare the will in a way that all of your assets on the time of your death will be passed according to the will. So it doesn't matter what you have today, if you're planning on moving, acquiring new property, if you're planning on having more kids or not. Your will can be done today and
Yep.
can accomplish everything that needs to be accomplished before your death, regardless of how much time we are looking at.
And that's the one big thing is you don't need to list all your assets on a will.
No,
It's
you
just-
don't. It's a lot easier than that.
Yeah.
Most of my clients, when they come in after they have signed the will and they're taking the documents with them, they're like, oh, this process is a lot easier than I anticipated. I shouldn't have postponed that long.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And then the other part that you do a lot of work with is real estate conveyancing.
that's right, which is in season right now. Like summer is a hot season for real estate purchase and selling business or homes. And I find this year, 2019, is the slowest year since I've started. I've started 3 years ago.
Okay.
And the market is just a lot different, very slow. And a lot of people are trying to move away from the market, which I think it's probably a big mistake, especially buyers. It's a buyer's market. They need to take advantage of that. They
Mhm.
like last year at this time, they were fighting with like multiple people to get one property, and they were offering more than asked price. Right now, they are getting properties for asked price or under asking
Mhm.
price. And the hardest part now is to get approved for a mortgage. But
Yeah.
if they can, or if they can at least try to go like a little bit less than what you were expecting in order to get into the market. And I think it's especially good at this time, the way that the market is
Yeah.
for young buyers, which it was probably like unthinkable last year. Like millennials were totally disappointed with like placing 30 offers in different properties, not winning one, not being able to purchase anything.
Yeah.
This time of the year, the way that the market is perfect for getting into the market until it heats up again.
Well, and people still need to move, and people still need to sell their houses. And
Yes.
People get transferred jobs, and I mean, people are always going to be able to have to sell their houses. It's just
That's
not always
right.
the best time. But one of the rules, as far as like Warren Buffett would say, is that if everybody's trying to get into a market, he's running away from it, and when everybody's running away from a market, he's trying to get into it. So,
Yeah.
you know, we're kind of in a weird situation right now in BC real estate with all this stuff with money laundering, and people are, I think, afraid for good reason that the market is still a little volatile, and you know,
That's true.
I think there's a lot of money sitting on the sidelines and waiting to kind of go in there. So you've got your notary. Is it a master's program in
Yeah.
Okay.
NSFU.
and then you've got your MBA, master's in business, and then you also have your undergrad in law.
In business.
In
just
business. Oh, okay.
yeah.
So what's been the most applicable for you in your business world? Has it been the notary
I would say
training or the business
A
training?
little bit of everything. When you go to the program of becoming a notary, then you think that it's going to be all about law and all the tasks that you learn during the master's program, which is probably why most people go through school.
Yeah.
And then first day that as soon as I graduated, the following Monday, I've opened my business. So
Wow.
it was quite
You
brave.
You didn't mess around, did you?
No.
It's like, okay,
I
let's set up
did all
shingles.
my practicum during the time that I was in school. So I was able to fulfill all the hours I needed. And then when I graduated and I was called in court to get my license,
Mhm.
I was able to open my business right away. So many of my friends, they chose to work with other notaries for a year or two before opening their own. I had business background experience, so I decided to open my own from the day one. I had 3 mentors that in the technicalities of being a notary, I could reach out to ask for help whenever I needed, and I needed a lot, especially the first year.
Yeah.
But business-wise, I think everything that I have done, from living by myself since I was 19,
Mm-hmm.
to all the different experience that I had in life, led me to, or helped me with becoming an entrepreneur and
Yeah.
having my own business, because the notary aspect is the easiest part of my day.
Yes, I would.
All
yeah.
the other hats that I have to wear in terms of like accounts receivable, accounts payable, and managing people, and then finding qualified people to work, and doing HR, and then making sure that people were motivated to care for the business, and clients, customer service. All of those take a lot more of my time than
Mhm.
being a notary by itself.
Yeah.
So I find, like, of course, that, like, I think every bit of my life experience contributes a little bit to the business owner that I am today.
Mm-hmm.
It would probably be a lot harder if I didn't have the business background, having my own business before, and having the MBA and all of that.
Yeah.
Because I had, like, it's not that I was clueless about what needed to be done. I am fully aware of most of the things that need to be done. It's
Yeah.
just that I only have 24 hours in a day. I'm a mother of 2, and I have a husband, and I don't have maids or any other people like helping me out. No.
Oh, come on.
Now, out of curiosity, and I know we've had some conversations before, but as a notary, are there major guidelines to what you're allowed to do and how you're allowed to market, and
Oh, yes.
and do you stick to those really well, or?
I think one of the key advantages of learning about the law is knowing where to push into gray zones. So I think you probably haven't seen a lot of notaries, or lawyers for that matter, doing many of the things that I am currently doing. And my thinking is just that I want to be out there. I want to be part of the community. I want to be using technology and the latest technology and tools available to market myself and market my business, being part of the community. And I think many notaries from probably all the history of notaries and the background that they carry with them, they probably don't agree with me. They think that we don't really need that. They have been doing business, notaries are like a trusted tradition for centuries, and they have been doing business just by opening up, putting a sign out there, and having a phone line, and basically starting seeing clients from get-go, and from the relationships that they build in the community. In
Well,
my
it doesn't
case,
sound like there's not a lot of notaries out there. Like, if there's 30 people in a program and 12 of them are graduating every single year, it's not like there's a. If you just look at attrition of people retiring, there's not a lot of notaries out there.
we have
So-
like 360 notaries total in BC.
In
more or
BC.
less, in BC. Well, it's a provincial
Yeah,
program,
yeah.
so every province will have different requirements and different legislation that notaries can work with. So
Right.
BC specifically, we have about 360 notaries. And yes, the main issue that we currently have is that half of these notaries will be retiring in the near future.
Yeah.
So in order to address that, since I've graduated, SFU is now starting programs like twice a year instead of only once a year.
Mhm.
And I think that they are making it a little bit easier. So classes, instead of studies starting in only 11 or 12 graduating, now they have almost the entire class graduating. I don't know how beneficial or not that's going to be for the public in terms of the notaries. I'm sure that they offer a great training. I just don't know how strict they are now in terms of grading and graduating people. But I trust that the professionals, because I think that the key thing, when you are very strict academically speaking, you are probably leaving out a lot of people that will be great professionals. Because in reality, on an everyday life, we have resources that we can check.
Mhm.
We have people that we can call if we don't know. But if you need to have a specific kind of personality, of being an entrepreneur and being a customer service oriented person that may not necessarily be the A person academic speaking,
Right.
but the best notary or the best person to be a notary.
Yeah.
And I think that they have realized that and they're opening more to that.
I also think we were seeing with all the money laundering that's been going on and money's going through a number of companies, and I think it's even more important that we have proper framework of notaries and lawyers that are out there that are actually abiding by the laws and that can back up our and I don't think people realize how important the judiciary is in our system.
Yes.
The judiciary is incredibly important in our democracy. Like it is the one pillar that we can't live without in democracy. And everybody's like, oh, the courts are this and the courts are that. Well, you know what? The courts are what they are, and the judicial system is what it is. But it's there to protect us, and it's there to protect everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not we like that or not is one thing. Like, and we could talk about all the judges making decisions on people, murdering somebody and getting 5 years in jail, or whether or not that's fair or not. That's not up to us to decide if it's fair or not. We may not agree with it, but it's there for everybody.
That's right.
And it is meant to be impartial, and that's why the lady, the legal system, the lady has the blindfold on, and it's the scales of justice, right? So
That's right.
notaries are an incredibly important part of that, and I think people need to understand that. And
I think there was also one thing that we haven't really touched on, and I know we're getting kind of close to time here, so I wanted to
we can cut some stuff out.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly go over, because again, marketing is kind of my thing that I'm really interested in, and it wasn't that long ago in BC where they had specific amount of notaries, like your one notary
It was restricted, yes.
And that's probably why the marketing was not a big thing to notaries, because it was like, no, this is my turf. Everybody that needs a notary, they're coming to me. I don't need to do anything.
That's
but now,
yeah.
I don't know, was it 10 years ago or something?
It was about 12 years
12?
ago, or yeah, around there.
And that's I heard back then even notaries were a lot of them were upset because that was going to be the retirement, selling their
Their
license,
seal, yes.
and that kind of that kind of didn't quite happen. So I'm not sure what the ramifications are of that, but still I think the way that you're marketing now is almost a requirement to be
To
different.
any business owners,
yeah,
regardless of if you're a notary or not.
yeah, when you have when you have room now for a bunch of notaries in an area,
Mm-hmm.
you have to stand out. You can't just rely on that shingle outside.
I think,
Exactly.
and I also, and you said there's only 360 in BC, and the majority of them are probably in Vancouver and the Lower Mainland.
That's right.
We have a massive province that's twice the size of Texas, everybody. And that's what we got to get our heads out of our Lower Mainland thinking, and even just in Canada in general, we have, and it frustrates me to know that there is a massive amount of people, like there's over 1 million people that live outside of the Lower Mainland, Fraser Valley, that need to be serviced by our industries and our things, and there's massive distances that people have to travel. And if you're being able to use the new technology and being able to service more people in BC, good on you for doing that.
The only thing is that with notaries, we have to see the clients in person. So even though we have technology available, it's helpful
So
in many ways.
Skype won't work?
It does work for some parts,
Okay.
but we still need to see the clients. So
Yeah.
for example, I do use technology, and sometimes when I'm doing wills, clients prefer to do Skype appointments for the first appointment, and that's totally fine. As long as I meet them in person for the second appointment, because I need to verify IDs, I need to check that they're fully aware of what they are signing, and then before they sign, I can testify that that person was in front of me and has signed the documents.
Yeah.
So yes, technology does help in part, not totally yet, because we are not there where people are allowed to sign everything digitally yet.
Yeah.
Isn't a lot of it to do with also making sure that they're not under duress to say the things? Because if they're on camera,
somebody can be behind it and I'm not aware, and they may be under undue influence by someone and things like that.
Yeah. And then that's important as well. So,
It is.
And it's important that we have like notaries, and you're not called to the bar like lawyers are, but you're called to the courts, and you need to swear an oath to uphold the judiciary and uphold the rules that are enforced. And
That's right.
if you violate that, then the punishments are quite strict and severe.
We may be banned from acting as a notary.
Well, you can charge criminally.
And charge criminally as
so,
well.
and you're held at a higher standard.
Exactly.
Because you are fiduciary, right?
And
So,
we have the fiduciary duty, and even though we are corporations, or many of us are, we are not protected from the regular corporation legislation
Right.
in terms of like our personal assets would always be on the line.
yeah. So that being said, and I'm going to end this, and I think this is important, is as an entrepreneur, but also as being somebody who is a member of the judiciary and an important part of it.
Mm-hmm.
What's the biggest risk to your business in particular in BC and Canada right now?
The biggest risk, I think, depends on the area, because like for notaries in general, we are trying to get more powers to be able to help the society more, because we feel the need of the society of having alternative legal options to represent them in different aspects, for example, family law or criminal law, things like that. And I think the risk is has more to do with politics, of not allowing us to grow as a notary society, because then it's going to conflict more or interrelate more with what the lawyers do, and kind of like restrict our powers in some way. But other than that, like also the real estate market is a great risk for notaries, because most of us work, 50% of our work is real estate.
Mm-hmm.
So if the real estate market is down, then it affects all of us as well.
Yeah, and I think people need to realize that everything is connected in our
It is,
economy,
for sure.
and the more regulations you put in, like the mortgage rules, you say were a big
Mhm.
thing. Well, that's a massive thing for self-employed people.
True.
Because like both my wife and I are self-employed. If we were to go to a brick and mortar bank to try and get a loan, they laugh us out of there.
Yeah.
Even though we're fairly we're doing okay as far as businesses are concerned, but
Mm-hmm.
because we don't have somebody
The
paying our
standard T4.
you don't have the standard T4. So again, notaries are important for that as well, because we have to do stated income
That's true.
and that type of thing. So
And one thing that I wanted to point it out is that the Society of Notaries, they do an awesome job in terms of protecting the public and regulating very strictly all the notaries.
yeah,
So not only in terms of, we go through auditing, where the Society of Notary comes to my office to audit the way that I'm drafting my wills, my documents, the way that I'm handling my financials, all of that, all the time, at least once every 2 years. I personally have been audited already, like almost 3 times now. Not only by the society, but also for the money laundering thing, because we are open to the federal government legislation, and
Yeah.
we allow them to come in and audit us at any time.
and I
So-
think people need to realize that there are self-auditing organizations. Like my organization, we're self-regulatory as well.
Mhm.
And we take it very seriously that we are self-regulated, and we don't want to have governments coming in and regulating every single thing, because that will just grind everything to a halt.
That's right.
And we have to hold ourselves up to a higher standard as far as being a fiduciary and being a member of, an important member of that. So
Mhm.
again, if you have somebody who's doing your wills up as a notary, you are in good hands. If you have somebody, like a notary is another option for you, for people watching and listening for those things, not
That's
family
right.
law, not criminal law, but contract law, transfers of property, estate planning.
That's right.
I would highly encourage you to look up a good notary, and if you're in the Langley area, have a look for Flavia.
Yes, Zancope Notary.
Zancope Notary. All right, Reiner. You're up.
Alrighty, well, it's time for our lightning round.
Oh,
So you don't get off the hook without some silly questions.
sure.
So we're going to start with, so just answer quickly and whatever comes to your mind. What's your favorite junk food?
Sausage
Gummy
in a
bears.
can.
Gummy bears.
Gummy bears.
Yeah, I think my kids would probably join you on that one.
I know, I hide it from my kids.
Used to do that too, yeah. Do you know how to salsa dance?
No.
We have something coming up Saturday where you can learn.
Oh, God.
Ask permission or beg forgiveness.
Beg forgiveness always.
Did you go to summer camp as a kid?
No. No. we
That
don't
probably
have
didn't exist in Brazil.
No.
Yeah. What's your favorite restaurant?
Japanese in general, the favorite type of food. I don't have a particular restaurant that I would say it's my favorite. I like many restaurants, but Japanese food is my favorite.
Have you ever seen a kangaroo in person?
No. Almost. In Kelowna, actually, they have a kangaroo farm, but no, I haven't seen one.
Ah, interesting. Well, that ends our lightning round.
You let her off easy.
I did let her off easy.
Okay, when we get off, I want to find out some good Brazilian restaurants, because I love going to Brazilian restaurants.
The best one around here, I would say in Seattle.
Oh, it's, yeah.
Yeah,
That's a little
over
bit
the
of a
shelves.
drive.
It's not really
I'm
around
going
here.
to go to the border. Where are you going? We're going to Seattle for dinner.
I know.
one side, please.
Hey, we used to, my wife and I used to go to Penticton for Greek, and we'd go for dinner and come home.
Oh,
Because Theo's was amazing, but now we've had a few other ones here, but we used to drive up there just for dinner. We were kind of nuts when we were younger,
Well,
long time ago.
yeah, well, you're still nuts, but whatever.
But I'm not younger.
You're still nuts, you're just older and nuts.
Yes, I'm more refined nuts.
Well, again, thank you so much, Flavia, for coming on, and it's always
Thank you.
interesting to listen to, first of all entrepreneurs, number one, number two, immigrant entrepreneurs, and the stories that are always there. We all have a little bit of a screw loose, I think, but I love the success journeys of immigrants to our country, and I think it's awesome, and I think we need more. I think we need to hear more stories like that. So,
yeah.
thanks for coming on, and looking forward to seeing you again.
Thanks for having me here. It was fun.
All right,
Nice.
with that, we're out.